So I do want to welcome all of our Atlanta area churches and Athens Church, Southside Church, all the campuses down there, keep growing down there. And then those of you who are watching really from all over the country and all over the world, it's so fun to have a network of churches and a network of people who just are participating in the same content and trying to figure out how to follow Jesus in this crazy world that we live in. We're so glad that you're joining us from wherever you're joining us. Now, a little self-evaluation, and if this makes you a little uncomfortable, I understand the goal is to make everyone equally uncomfortable. That's kind of my goal, because sometimes coming to church is uncomfortable. So instead of trying to make everyone comfortable, it's just easier to make everybody equally uncomfortable, and then we can kind of move together, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so here's where I want to start. I'm not sure, and maybe you know the answer to this, I'm not sure when we begin lying to ourselves. I think it's probably earlier than we would imagine, and I'm not sure when we stop lying to ourselves. It may coincide with when we stop breathing. I'm not so sure about that. And here's the thing about this. We all get pretty good at catching other people lying, right? But we're not so good at catching ourselves when we're lying. And I don't mean we don't catch ourselves when we're lying to other people. Generally, we know when we're lying to other people, but it's very difficult to catch ourselves when we're lying to ourselves. And while lying to other people is unexcusable, it's at least a little bit understandable, because every once in a while you feel like lying to someone else, there's some short-term gain. You know, you kind of protect your reputation. Long-term, it's a terrible idea, but in the moment, it kind of makes sense sometimes to lie, and I'm not advocating lying. That's another subject for another day. But when it comes to lying to ourselves, why in the world, this is crazy, why in the world would we deceive ourselves? It's enough to make me believe in total depravity, because it's totally ridiculous and it's totally confusing when we think about lying to ourselves. Because, and again, you may understand this better than I do, who's lying to whom? I mean, how do you deceive yourself? I mean, how many selves are there in there, okay? And if you're thinking, Andy, well, I don't ever lie to myself, you just did, but you don't know that you did, because you're so ridiculously good at it, because we're also good at it. And the reason we are also good at deceiving ourselves is that we don't call the lies we tell ourselves about ourselves lies. We call them something else. We dignify our lies. We call them reasons. We've talked about this. We call them reasons because that's reasonable, and we want to be reasonable. We don't want to be unreasonable, because we've met unreasonable people and we don't want to be like them. So here's how this works. You're late for work, okay? And I'll just personalize it. I'm late for work. And why am I late for work? Well, it's the traffic. I mean, that's my presenting reason. That's what I tell myself. Now, I did get up a little late, and I piddled around, and I went down the Twitter rabbit hole, then I went down the Instagram rabbit hole, and next thing I knew, I was running late. But there was a lot of traffic, so I'm just gonna stick with there was a lot of traffic. That's actually why I'm late to work. I tell myself, why am I trying to convince myself? There's just one me, but suddenly there's two me's, and we all do this. So your version, I'll kind of put this on you. The reason you got so mad, you tell yourself. The reason you don't eat more healthy, you tell yourself. The reason you don't exercise more, you tell yourself. The reason you're leaving, the reason you're staying, the reason you have so much consumer debt, right? Or, the reason you too much, well, I don't know, you just fill in your own blank, okay? Not out loud, and you can't suggest blanks for other people, okay? The reason that you do this too much, okay? The reason you do whatever it is you do too much, the reason that you tell yourself why you do whatever too much is not actually the reason. In fact, the actual reason that you blank too much may be a secret that you're keeping from yourself, so that you don't have to face the uncomfortable truth about you. Now, when you kind of lay it out like this is ridiculous. I mean, this is crazy, and we all do it, because instead of telling ourselves the truth about ourselves, we manufacture, or we create, or we make up excuses, and then we disguise them as reasons. So if you don't get anything else out of the talk today, and you lose interest or you lose electricity, here's just something to think about. Maybe, just maybe, we should call it like others see it. Not call it for what it is or call it like it is. We should call it for how others see it, because others see it. When you are making up reasons, when you're making excuses and you've convinced yourself, do not be deceived. Nobody else is convinced. And the reason you should know they're not convinced is because you're not convinced when you see them doing it. But we so deceive ourselves, we think we're getting by with it. We think nobody's onto us. I hate to ruin your day or your week. Pretty much everybody who knows you is onto it. So we should at least admit it to ourselves, because the other people see our reasons for what they are: excuses. So today we are in part 3 of our series, Paper Walls, moving beyond the excuses that hold you back. As we said throughout the series, and this is the 3rd part of the series, if you missed last week because of the winter weather, make sure you go on my YouTube channel or our local church YouTube channel and catch up, because these are sequential. But as we've said throughout this series, there are things that we should carry forward from season to season. There are things that, good friends, good habits, but there are things that we should leave behind. And this is a series about the one thing we should all leave behind, which is namely our excuses. Because we've said excuses are like paper walls, that from a distance they look real, from a distance they look like actual obstacles, from a distance they look like they really are impenetrable. They look and they actually feel from a distance like they're actual reasons. And I can't move through this, I can't get beyond this, the reason. And then over time, our excuses in terms of our language and our relationships, our excuses become our becauses. And these are the becauses that we hang on to. These are the becauses we hide behind. These are the kind of go-to becauses to explain our behavior that we know needs some explanation, and we hide behind the same becauses over and over and over, and we use them to defend ourselves, Why don't you? Because. Why do you always? Because. Why do you always act that way? Because. Why do you shut down when he walks up? Why do you, because. Why do you just keep on doing this? Why don't you stop? Why don't you start? Why don't you go back and finish? Why don't you just talk to him? Why don't you just talk to her? Why don't you just forgive them? Because. But the truth is, oftentimes our because isn't really the cause. It's something we've manufactured. Our because is just an excuse masquerading as a cause. So, and this is, I know it's so odd because this is all internal. We all do this internally, and it holds us back. So in this series, here's what I'm asking you to consider. And again, you listen to a series like this, even as I'm preparing the series, I think of other people. It's just so difficult to stay in the mirror rather than looking out the window, at your kids or your grandkids or your friends or your neighbor or the homeowners association people or the other party. It's just so easy to see other people doing this. And that's the point. It's easy for other people to see you doing this. So instead of worrying about all of them for just a minute, here's the question we're asking. Is it possible? And this isn't a Christian thing or a religious thing. This is for everybody. We'll get to the Jesus part in a minute, but even if you're not a religious person, you should at least consider this. Is it possible that you're missing out because you've walled yourself in? Is it possible that there's something you're missing out on because you have walled yourself in? Is it possible that some of your becauses are actually just excuses? Is it possible that every time somebody suggests you move in this direction and you retreat behind your paper wall, that you're actually missing out on something on the other side that you actually secretly want but aren't sure you're worthy of, aren't sure you could ever accomplish it, aren't sure it's ever even worth the emotion? Is it possible that you have walled yourself in, which means you have walled yourself out of certain kinds of relationships, certain kind of freedom, and certain kinds of opportunities? Is it possible that some of your becauses, I'm not accusing you, is it possible some of your becauses are actually just excuses? It's excuses constructed because excuses are things we make up. That's why we use the phrase, you're just making excuses. You're just making stuff up. Perhaps you've made up excuses based on things people have said about you in the past, names they've called you, things that you've been labeled. Is it possible that you are inventing, and this is true of all of us, is it possible you've invented reasons to defend certain behaviors? Every time he or she says, why do you do that? Why do you respond that way? Why do you react that way? You immediately have a because. Nobody says, I don't know, and I don't even care. I'm just getting, no. We all go, is it possible your go-to becauses are actually paper walls that are holding you back, but you think, no, they're real. There's a real reason I can't control my temper. There's a real reason I can't control my responses. There's a real reason why I don't want to forgive him or forgive her. There's a real reason. Is it possible? Is it possible that you're living behind manufactured, lie-infested paper? Well, is it possible that you have created excuses for why you react, overreact, why you avoid certain people? Because here's the thing we should all fear. An excuse can become a king. We've talked about this. One excuse in one area of your life can become a tyrant that impacts every other area of life, because our lives are not as compartmentalized as we may think. So when you say, well, the reason I can't overcome my temper, or the reason I can't overcome my tendency to just kind of go inside and shut everybody out, the reason, your excuse around blowing up or just going the opposite direction, it doesn't just impact you, right? It impacts all of your relationships. Your life isn't compartmentalized. In this way, an excuse can begin to seep into every single area of your life. That excusing unhealth in one area usually creates unhealth in other areas, right? That excusing bad financial or bad health habits eventually erodes your credibility with the people who are watching you. Because if you're gonna make excuses about your health, and if you're gonna make excuses about your finances, chances are you're probably gonna make excuses about other things, and you don't know that's happening. And an excuse can become a king, a board of directors, a tyrant. And that's why, as we said the last 2 times we've been together, this is why we're talking about it in church. Because, and this is so important if you're a Christian or a Jesus follower, there is a relationship between your excuses and your ability, not your willingness. There's a relationship between your excuses and your ability to follow Jesus. You can't follow your excuses. You can't choose to live behind your paper walls and follow Jesus at the same time. But here's the cool thing. When you follow Jesus through the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, throughout the Gospels, follow Jesus through one of the Gospels with this framework in mind. He was constantly leading people out of darkness into light, out from behind their paper walls into a bigger life, out from behind the lies they've been told about themselves or believed about themselves, or the things they've reiterated so many times it just comes out anytime something comes up. He led people beyond those things to see the world in a different way, to see his Father in a different way, and to see themselves in a different way. But the problem is, and this is why I've just kind of doubled down on just, is it possible that lighting up an area of darkness in our life can be terrifying. It can be terrifying, it's threatening, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to say, the reason I say that is because I'm afraid. Okay, I said it. The reason I go there is because I'm insecure. Okay, I said it. The reason is so terrifying, it's so embarrassing, but it's liberating. In fact, if you don't believe me, just ask your AA friends or your NA friends. They'll tell you. Lies, especially the ones we tell ourselves about ourselves, lies will always hold you back. They hold us back because they leave us in the dark. And here's how you know that to be true. Again, any of these things we talk about, you turn it around and look at it from a different perspective. It's like, oh, it's so true for everybody else. Could that possibly be true for me? The reason that you know, or that you can rest assured that lies actually hold you back, is because you know other people for whom this is true. You look at the way they're parenting and you want to say to them, can't you see what you're doing to your children? You look at their marriage and you want to walk up to them and say, can't you see what you're doing to your marriage? You look at somebody that's mishandling their money and you want to walk up to them and say, can't you see that if you continue to live like this and spend like this and leverage debt like this, can't you see what's going to happen? Can't you see what you're doing to your career? Can't you see what you're doing to your family? Can't you see what you're doing to your body? Can't you see what you're doing to your health? Can't you see? And they can't. It's like they're wandering around in the darkness and it's evident to everybody else but them. And when you have that opportunity because of the relationship, and when you take a risk, and when you sit them down and say, hey, this is none of my business, or hey, because I love you, I just got to tell you, if you keep doing A, it's not going to get you to where you want to be. Can't you see how this is impacting you and the people around you? And when you approach them, they go to their paper walls because. And you know what you're doing? You're looking beyond their paper walls going, wow. If you could just see this situation, if you could just see what you're doing to your family, to your marriage, to your life, to your health, if you could just see this the way that I see this, you would realize that your reasons, they're not reasons, they're just excuses. Can't you see it for what it actually is? And what's true of them, it's true of you. It's true of you, and it's true of me. Lies will hold you back. Truth will set you free. You know, we sing songs or you hear Christians talk about, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. And you're like, what are you free from? This is what we're talking about being free from. And how amazing, this is so amazing, that 2,000 years ago, Jesus makes this very point. He makes this very point 2,000 years ago, but he makes this point after making this grand statement that was just so confusing to the people in his initial or immediate audience in the first century. He begins the conversation. This was so over the top. He says this, but it's so relevant to what we're talking about. He says, who would say this? I am the light of the world. Okay, wait, what? Wait, can you imagine? I mean, you're the light of the whole world. This is crazy talk. But what if that's true? What if Jesus really came to planet Earth to reflect what God is like so we would know who God likes and who God loves, to be the light of the world? What if Jesus, just imagine, what if Jesus actually came to lead those who would choose to follow him out of darkness into light? To lead them through the excuses that hold them back and cause them to disengage from other people and to miss out on everything God has for them. What if, in fact, that is what Jesus came for? What if, in fact, that's what he meant when he said, I am the light of the world and I am willing to light up your world? That's exactly what he claimed to do. And thus what he says next is so important, because what he says next is an invitation. It's an invitation regardless of what your religious background is, regardless of what you've done, regardless of what you believe. This is an invitation to everybody. And the reason I know it's an invitation to everybody is because throughout his Gospels, he extended this invitation to all kinds of people. And he continues to extend it. And here's the invitation. Whoever follows me. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me, there's a connection. I am the light of the world. I'm the light for the whole world. Oh, that's great. But if you want to get in on this, if you want to experience what I've come to light up in terms of a personal life, whoever follows me, and this is so important, this is why our vision, our mission for our church is to inspire people not to believe in Jesus, but to follow Jesus, because this was his invitation. And just to, put it in no uncertain terms, Jesus does not need any more admirers. Everyone admires Jesus. Most people believe that Jesus lived. Many, many people believe in Jesus, however they define that. But Jesus' invitation into light isn't believe that or believe in or even admire me. It's to follow me. He says, anyone who follows me, and based on the fact that he's the light of the world, then what he says next, of course, we could almost guess what comes next. If Jesus is the light of the world, and if we choose to follow, this is so powerful. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me, not admires me, whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have with them the light or the lantern of life. He says, here's the thing. I just want you to follow me. I just want you to say yes to me. And when you say yes to me, I'm going to lead you nose to nose with the things that have been holding you back, causing you to miss out, giving you excuses, diminishing your life, making you small, making you unavailable. And I'm going to lead you through. Not because you believe, but because you have chosen to follow me. Now, when Jesus said this, his original audience was full of Pharisees, and they were always taking notes, trying to trap Jesus. And here's how they responded. The Pharisees challenged him, and they said this: here you are appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. Okay, you're a rabbi, but you are not the light of the world. You're crazy, the light of the world. And then later in that same conversation, Jesus says this. He says, he's speaking past the Pharisees and past the religious leaders to the people who are leaning in, hoping that maybe there's something to this. if you hold to my teaching, that is, if you will cling to, or literally, if you will remain in, if you will organize your life around, if you will commit to, stay with, if you will embrace my teaching, then that means you really are my disciples, or you really are my followers. And if you'll do that, this is a condition. If you will hold to my teaching, if you will choose to follow me, if you'll choose to follow me even before you believe I'm who I claim to be, if you will just hold to my teaching, then here's the promise. Then, it's conditional. Then, if you hold to my teaching, if you follow it and you follow me, then you will know the truth. Then you'll recognize what's real and what's not. If you'll know the truth, you'll recognize it, you'll quit resisting, you'll receive it. And when you do, that truth, here's this famous line that we've heard our whole lives, many of us. And then the truth will set you free. Set you free to see. Set you free to be everything God's called you to be. Set you free to see God as God truly is, to see yourself as you truly are, to see the people around you the way that God sees those people, because God understands the people around you better than you do. And he will help you see your paper walls for what they are. Now, here's the amazing thing. When you read this whole conversation in context, do you know how his original audience initially responded? This is kind of everybody in general. They started making excuses. It's unbelievable. He's like, I've come to set you free. You'll know the truth. The truth will make you free. This is like the greatest invitation. And their response is this. They cross their arms. We're Abraham's descendants. We don't need to be set free. We're Abraham's descendants. We've never been slaves to anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? Now, when you read this in historical context, this is amazing. When they say this, they have a Roman governor. Roman governor. What do you mean that you've never been a slave? Before the Romans, it was the Seleucids, it was the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Egyptians. I mean, the people of Israel have been enslaved over and over and over. In fact, this is so cool. This is actually a really cool thing. In Deuteronomy 15:15, when Moses is reminding the people of the law before Moses passes away, he says, look, to the people of Israel, he says, hey, be kind to your slaves because you were once a slave. And so even in their own literature, our Old Testament, this is all documented. And they're like, don't talk to us about being free. We don't need to be free. We are Abraham's descendants. We are free. We've never been enslaved to anyone. And it's easy to criticize them. But here's the point. We actually do the same thing. Because when I imply to you, this is why I'm saying, would you just consider it? When I imply to you that perhaps you are a slave to paper wall, that you've walled yourself in physically or financially or relationally or spiritually because of something you believe about yourself or you've always believed or an excuse you just go to. When I tell you that perhaps you are a slave, you are imprisoned to paper walls, your response is the same thing, the same as theirs. Oh, no, I'm not a slave to anyone. We could just put you in the text. I truly tell you, you would say to me, truly I tell you, I've never been a slave to anyone or anything. How can you say, Andy, that I shall be set free? And perhaps Jesus would respond to you and respond to me the same way he responded to his original audience. He was so great. He says, you've never been enslaved to anything or anyone? No, I've never been enslaved. And then Jesus makes this horrible point. He says, well, very truly I tell you, which means pay attention. Anyone who sins is a slave to sin. They're like, what? Yeah, anyone who sins is a slave to sin. They're like, what are we talking about? Well, anyone who sins is you said you've never been a slave to anything, but anyone who sins is a slave to sin. What do you mean? Jesus would say, well, have you ever done something you knew you shouldn't do? Yeah, and you did it anyway? Yeah. And then have you ever had something you knew you shouldn't do and you did it over and over and you knew you should stop, but you wouldn't stop? Yeah. Well, what do you call that? I think you call that being a slave to sin. Yeah. So you know what it's like to be in bondage. You know what it's like to do something you know you shouldn't do and then regret it later. I can't believe I did that. Who made you did that? I don't know. So Jesus is like, okay, so let's forget that. All of you, everyone understands what it means to be enslaved by something. And then he makes this amazing comment about his relationship to the Father. And then he concludes with this. He says, let's get back to the topic. you can know the truth. And the truth can make you free. Then he smiles, even at the Pharisees, I think, and to us. And he says, so, if the Son, talking about himself, if the Son of God sets you free, if you choose to follow the light of the world, and you invite the light of the world to light up your darkness and your excuses and the lies you tell yourself and the lies you tell your family and the lies you tell the people around you, and you don't even realize you're lying, you just go there. He says, if you'll allow him to light up the lies you believe, then if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. You'll be truly free. Free to name an excuse for what it actually is. Free to acknowledge that insecurity that it's just hard to admit. Free to acknowledge the fear that's held you back. Free to acknowledge the rage. Free to acknowledge the anger. Free to acknowledge the bitterness you've been hanging on to for a long time. Free to acknowledge how uncomfortable it is to even talk about whatever it is that's so difficult to talk about. And the reason, again, this is so important to those of us who really want to be Jesus followers, because following Jesus is about living an outward life and an others first life. Our excuses. Jesus, one of the reasons Jesus wants to set us free is to set us free to engage with the people that we tend not to engage with, because our excuses often become an excuse from engaging, or give us an excuse to not engage with others. Our excuses actually excuse us from loving others. You've been given the same old excuse or reason for your temper or your withdrawal or whatever it is for years and years and years, and you have an excuse. You have a paper wall for why you can't respond the way you should respond, and it's diminishing the people that you love, and it's keeping you from loving them the way you want to love them. So Jesus is saying, look, I want you to reflect the love of the Father in every area of life. And for you to do that, you can't continue to make the same excuses. It makes you small. It makes you selfish. It causes you to disengage. And I want you to live a bigger, better life than that. Now, if you're not convinced, again, let's flip it around. Let me ask you this. Isn't it true that the person or the people who hurt you the most had good reasons for why they hurt you? Isn't it true the person that abandoned you, isn't it true the person that lied to you, or the person that stole your idea, or the person that mistreated you? Isn't it true that if they were confronted, or when you confronted them and you said, why would you treat me that way? Why would you lie to me? Why? They didn't look at you and say, I don't know. Isn't it true they had paper walls? And they made up reasons for why they hurt you, and you're on the receiving end. I mean, you've been damaged, you've been hurt, you're set back financially, your reputation, whatever it might be, relationally, your heart is broken. I mean, it actually impacted you. And they have reasons for why they did what they did and said what they said, and you know they're not the real reasons. You know those are excuses. But look at how it's impacted you, because paper walls make us small, and paper walls make us self-centered, and paper walls ultimately cause us to disengage, and you can't love others the way God through Christ has loved you as long as you're living behind, and we're living behind excuses, because ultimately you can't follow Jesus and follow your excuses at the same time. You don't want to be like that. But here's the thing. Perhaps you are like that, and you don't know it. Because I don't know when you began lying to yourself. And I don't know when I began lying to me. Here's something that should scare us all to death in a positive way. If you can't see, you're wrong, you'll be wrong your entire life. If you can't see it, remember all the people we talked about a minute ago? Can't you see what you do into your family? Can't you see what you do into your health? Can't you see what you do into your grades? Can't you see what you do? Can't you see? If we can't see that we're wrong, we will be wrong our entire lives, which meant you could excuse your life away. You could excuse your family away. You could excuse a habit away, your health away, your finances away. You have the power to excuse everything that's valuable to you away. If you can't see that you're wrong, you'll be wrong your entire life. As Sarah Anderson reminded us a few years ago, do you know what it feels like to be wrong? It feels exactly like being right, because you don't know that you're wrong. You could excuse God away. But the good news is there is a better way. In fact, in the first century, they called it the way, because Jesus has invited you and invited me to follow him. Not just believe, not just admire, follow him out of darkness into light. Here's what he said again. I'm the light of the world. Whoever doesn't admire, doesn't believe in, doesn't believe that, whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Do you know what this looks like? It looks like this. It means that you begin removing the speck from your eye before you focus on the log in your eye, I should say, instead of focusing on the speck in the other person's eye. Yeah, but, because, no, Jesus, no, we'll get to them later. I want you to quit using their behavior as your excuse. You've been living behind that wall your whole life. Look what they did to me. I know what they did, but look, let's talk about you. Otherwise, you're gonna allow their behavior to wall you in, and you're gonna use their behavior as your excuse for the rest of your life, and I want better for you than that. Do you know what it looks like to follow Jesus, the light of the world? It means that you forgive even though you have 25 reasons why they shouldn't be forgiven. Well, why don't you just forgive him? Because, and Jesus says, come here. All those becauses, they're just holding you back. They're poisoning your other relationships. Follow me through that. It means you'll engage. I'm so intimidated. I'm so afraid. I'm so uncomfortable around them. Jesus says, hey, come on, engage. You can't love them as long as you're hiding behind your insecurity and your fear. It's terrifying. It's liberating. He's the light of the world. He wants to light up your world, light up your relationships, light up the way you see the world and see your part and your place in it. It's possible, or I should say, is it possible, one more time, that you're missing out because you've walled yourself in? Is it possible that you've shut other people out because you've walled yourself in? Here's Jesus' invitation. This is so powerful. In fact, let me just say this, and sometimes I get in trouble when I say this because I'm taken out of, it comes across different than the way I mean it, but I'll just say it anyway. Even if you don't believe Jesus is the Son of God, I want to challenge you to follow him. Did you know everybody who chose to follow him in the first century, none of them believed he was the Son of God till after the resurrection? In fact, they followed him. Then when he was arrested, they unfollowed. Unfollow, not doing that. They did, everybody that followed, unfollowed. When Jesus was crucified, wasn't anybody following? You don't follow a crucified, day laborer. He says, I want you to follow, and in following, you'll discover light and life. If you follow my teaching, you have the potential to be set free. Here's the invitation. If you hold to my teaching, come on, if you're a Christian, are you holding to his teaching? Or are you just singing about it? Are you holding to his teaching, or you just believe in it? Are you actually holding to his teaching? Are you actually daily following Jesus? He says, if you hold to my teaching, then you really are my followers or my disciples. And then and only then will you know the truth or experience the truth, and that truth will set you free. Free to see perhaps what other people have been trying to get you to see for a long time. Free to be who God created you to be. Free to be, hey dads, come on. Free to be the dad. Remember when your son or daughter was born and you were gonna be the dad that your dad wasn't? And now you're a lot like the dad that your dad was? And you're thinking, what's wrong with me? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with you. Somewhere along the way, you're living behind paper walls, and Jesus is saying, come on, your son, your daughter, they're worth it. I want you to follow me. Following Jesus will make your life better. Jesus, I want to make you better at life, and you won't get any better at life as long as you're turning excuses into becauses, into reasons. I want you to follow me, and then you'll know the truth, and then the truth will set you free. Now, if all this sounds just like preacher talk, well, of course you'd say that you're the preacher, then you should be encouraged to know that you're not alone. In fact, this is so strange. When Jesus finished this extraordinary teaching, here's the next thing that happened. They picked up stones to stone him. It's like, what? Yeah, you know why? This is comfortable. This is comfortable. Don't shine any light on me. This is comfortable. I've got all my reasons staked out around me. I don't need to change. I don't have to change. And anytime you ask me or question me, I got so many reasons. This is comfortable. So Jesus, you go light up somebody else's life. They picked up stones to stone him, but he slipped away only to return another day to give his life away because he's the light of the world. Is it possible? Is it possible that you're missing out? Is it possible you're missing out because you've walled yourself in? Is it possible that you're disguising excuses as reasons? And are you willing to admit what you suspect? Because as I was talking, and not even today while I was talking, every once in a while, you hear yourself spouting off those same reasons and becauses, and you know. Are you willing to admit what perhaps you have suspected for a long, long time? Again, I'm not sure when we start lying to ourselves, but Jesus invites you, and Jesus invites you to leave your fact-free excuses behind and to face the awkward, painful, sometimes terrifying, but at the end of the day, liberating truth about you and about him. And if you do, he says, you will be free. Because if the Son sets you free, if you choose to follow Jesus and you follow Jesus into that kind of freedom, when the Son sets you free, you shall be free indeed. And we'll pick it up there, right there, next time as we conclude our series, Paper Walls. Paper walls, moving beyond the excuses that hold you back. And next week, we're gonna get really, really, really practical. So don't miss next week. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the freedom some of us have experienced. Thank you for threatening us because you love us. Thank you for making us uncomfortable because you love us. Thank you for drawing us out because you love us. And Father, wherever this lands with us, whether we're Jesus followers yet or not, I pray that we would respond. And Father, for the Christians listening, but if they're honest, they don't follow, they just admire and believe in from a distance. Would you give all of us the courage to lean in and to follow the light of the world who came into the world to bring life into the world? So wherever this lands with us, give us wisdom to know what to do with it. And please give us the courage to follow. In Jesus' name, amen.